Hey, what's up? It's Comic95 the Savior, and for this video I wanted to give you some of my own personal advice and opinions on how I have learned and grown on dealing with talking about topics and issues that deal with racism, and in particular for people that don't mean any harm. So this is going to be a very controversial topic, so please hear me out. I speak from personal experience. Do not let my life here in Japan, or my hairstyle for that matter, fool you. I am not trying to switch sides or forget who I am, but rather I'm speaking from experience after having lived in Japan and seeing things from a different perspective and another side. So, excuse me, something that I will say to start off with is, being a black woman, specifically, an American black person, there are so many things and experiences that I have that other people cannot, including other black people from other black countries. And with that said, I am naturally more sensitive and more understanding of the difficulties that people face being a true minority in this world, because I am a minority in my home country too, whereas for black people that come from, African or Caribbean countries, etc., you are still the majority where you come from. So while we might share the same complexion, and you might understand things through media, for most people, we're not talking about unicorns and exceptions to the rule, for most people, you cannot truly understand what it is like to be black in a white environment, or in this case, an Asian environment, until you actually come there yourself. And one of the things that we don't talk about so much in the US or in other black countries, I would say, when I say black countries, I mean black communities really, because of course the US is not black, but you get what I mean. We don't think about how grateful we should be for the fact that we have so much information, knowledge, both in our schools and through media, that teaches people how to approach black people, how to talk to black people, what things are sensitive for people of color. Whereas being somewhere in Asia, not that they don't have access to the same information, but they don't find the need to access it. There are not ads in media or celebrities speaking on these things and throwing it in their faces. It is not talked about on their social media. And with that said, you have to be understanding that there is a ton of ignorance. So not to say that things need to go unchecked and not, uncorrected, for lack of a better word, but you need to be sensitive with the way that you talk to people about these things, because the reality is you are not going to change someone or encourage them to grow or encourage them to want to research and learn about what's wrong with stereotyping, or what's wrong with colorism, or what's wrong with making, these derogatory, whatever you want to call it, prejudice remarks by being rude. You are not going to defuse the situation. So I will give you an example for myself. Whenever I would, hear or see anything, or from somebody, like, for example, complimenting me, like, oh, you're the most beautiful light-skinned black woman I've ever seen, or saying things like, oh, like, I like light-skinned girls, or I like black women, especially light-skinned women, or I like, curly hair, and when I say curly hair, I mean, like, specifically my texture of curly hair. So I don't want to contradict myself. I uploaded a video for YouTube members in which I addressed talking about wanting to be white. I'm not going to contradict what I said in that video, but I will say that at the same time, I'm aware that when people oftentimes compliment you and say things like that, they're coming from a place of both self-hate for themselves, as well as projecting that European beauty standards, or not even European beauty standards, but European beauty, or European natural beauty, so to speak, is what's seen as beautiful. Because the reality is, Europeans don't want to be pale skin. So that's not really a European beauty standard. But you know what I mean, when it comes to other things, for example, like, having a slim, straight nose, something that I do not have. So little topics like that. It's very normal and natural for you to want to get angry, want to go off on them, want to correct them, but you have to do it out of a place of love and not out of anger, and not out of a, presumption, or whatever you want to call it, where you want to get mad at them because, like, oh, you should know better, you have access to this information. And the reality is, you have to remember, you cannot expect yourself and other people, and not everybody has the want, need, or push to want to dig up and look for information like that. And I can say for myself, I personally like to read, watch, listen to, and hear about different random things, whether it be illnesses, diseases, cultures, racial issues, etc. But before I decided to come to Japan, I didn't really know anything about Asians. And I initially started off with Korea because, I'll be honest, total weeb, Korea, whatever you want to call it, I initially wanted to go to Korea. I was actually kind of disappointed when I found out that, K-dramas and the music, like, I was like, oh, this is Korea, it's not Japan. But I was like, I feel conflicted. I like K-drama, I like K-pop, but I also like anime and video games. We're going to get into all of that crap here. But long story short, what they all share together is race. They're all Asian. And with that said, there are lots of things that they do have in common from culture to culture. Likewise, black people, we are very different from somebody, black American is not the same as a Jamaican or somebody that's from Haiti, Haitian, or somebody that is from South Africa, etc. But we do have a lot of things in common with us all being black people. You get what I mean? Racially, besides just our appearance, there are things from culture to culture that we share as black people. We all came from Africa initially. So we're not going to get into that for this video. But what I wanted to say was I had the drive to learn and research and look into how to talk to Asian people without being offensive. Because, for example, I didn't think anything of it. If I had an Asian friend, I wanted to know, like, hey, look, how do you say this in Korean? Or, hey, like, where are you really from? Or, I never called people this, but I didn't understand why is Oriental a bad word. Like, things like that. And so you have to remember when you're dealing with Asian, specifically Japanese people here, don't get me wrong, like I said, yes, they do have access, but think about it. Would you have gone and looked up, some of y'all watching my video right now, it's going to be the first time you're hearing this. Would you have gone and looked up on your own, is Oriental a bad word? No. You see restaurants named Oriental. There's songs, there's musicians, there's a radio show, there's all type of different stuff with that name. So how would you know that you're not supposed to say that? Like, you get what I mean? You can't be mad at an Asian person for using the N-word. Now, don't get me wrong if somebody's saying it to you to purposely be insulting. But, I mean, like, in the sense of true ignorance. Same thing goes for things like, blackface, etc. Now, don't get me wrong again. I'm not contradicting myself. My information stays the same. They should know better. Do the research and realize, oh, this is offensive, I shouldn't be doing this. And like I said, there's a huge difference with how they try to portray black characters when they choose to dress up as a black person like Michael Jackson per se, and if they were to be somebody like Billie Eilish. You are not going to see a Japanese person walk around and literally paint themselves, throw a bucket of white paint on themselves, and do a sloppy job with makeup and have a piece in their hand and show that they're wearing, baggy, oversized clothes with their gut hanging out, show that they're supposed to be Billie. You know who they're supposed to be by their clothing, by their mannerisms, and their costume if they're acting in character. You can moonwalk. We can see you're supposed to be Michael Jackson. Wear the glove. You don't have to do all of that crap. White people, cosplay as Michael Jackson all the time. They ain't gotta bleed, darken their skin or whatever. And that's the other weird thing, too, as I talked about combining the two different eras of Michael Jackson's. But we ain't finna get into all of that. There's a difference between people doing it to purposefully be offensive and get a, kick out of making fun of or mocking black skin. Like, for example, those costumes I talked about. But then there are people that completely innocently are just wearing makeup. They do a good job with it to look black. And they don't understand what's wrong with this. Like, you get what I mean? They don't understand what's wrong with it. So, again, I'm not justifying what people are doing. But rather I'm saying if you really want people to change, you have to meet them where they are and be willing to listen to them, talk to them in a way that shows that you are disgusted with what they're doing, but not where you are just angry and like, don't do this, it's offensive, racist, whatever. You know what I mean? Don't get too into it because they don't understand and they don't know any better. And I think of a mistake that I made with my own students. I had a student make a racial joke to me, one of my favorite students, teachers' pets, and I said I was going to make this video years ago. And she thought that, I don't know where she heard this from, where she got it from. But her drink bottle, was it her drink bottle? I think it was another student's drink bottle was missing. They couldn't find it. And she had suggested that it was the black family in the park that took the drink bottle. She specifically said, I forgot her exact words, but she basically said that, maybe it was, the black people, like Miss Wren. And it completely, I shut down. I got really angry. And I was thinking, it'd be one thing if you said it's probably, the foreigners, and that would have been bad too. But I was thinking, where did you learn that from? And so I would hate to, imagine where it could have came from, parents' TV, whatever. But the way that I handled it was completely inappropriate. I showed that I was angry at her. I told her to never say that again. When she came inside the classroom, I had her come to the front and apologize to me and apologize to the class. And I talked to everybody about how, that wasn't nice to say. Like, how would they feel if they were in my country and you were the only Asian person and somebody said, must have been an Asian like you, whatever. And these are 6-year-olds, y'all. But I'm giving you an example. This is me losing my cool. This is me making a mistake as a teacher. I'm being honest with you. And so I didn't curse her out or anything like that. My way of handling it wasn't appropriate. Sure, I probably scared the crap out of her and made her decide I'm not going to say anything racist or bad again. But it also could have gone the other way. So she apologized, gave me a little sorry note, and I felt awful. I apologized to her and her mother. And I feel really bad. Her mom was really, really embarrassed, and she came to me and she was like, I don't know where she heard this from, and her mom was really apologetic. But she was my favorite student in my class, and I was really hurt by it. But again, bring it back down. That's the past. It's an experience that I learned from. And even with dealing with friends and talking to people, everyone has to learn from somewhere. Different people learn differently. Sometimes people have to learn through an experience of dealing with another black person or dealing with another white person. I've told you guys stories before on my channel how I've literally had people where I was their only black friend, or they never, like European people in particular, especially people from, places, like, I don't know, Norway, etc. It's possible that you've never seen a black person in your life, or you've never actually befriended one or spoken to one before. So even if you're not saying or doing anything racist to me, naturally, everything inside your mind is racist, stereotypical crap that you have conjured up from different things you've seen and heard, etc. So you might eventually say something ignorant towards me, and you don't even mean it in a racist way. It doesn't change what you said was racist and hurtful. Let's not forget about that part. You don't have to mean something for it to be, if you get what I mean. I don't have to mean to end your life and kill you. But if I shot you with a gun, are you not bleeding? Did you not just die? Do you see what I'm saying? It's the same situation. You don't have to mean to be offensive. You don't have to truly believe that you are superior. You don't have to truly believe that, there's a them and us type thing, be prejudiced and funky, whatever, for your comments, your words to be racist, racially charged statements, for them to be insulting and offensive. You could tell somebody, oh, look, you gained some weight. And you might not even mean, in a mean, harsh, bad way. You might really just call yourself acknowledging it. But if you hurt their feelings, who cares about what you meant? You need to accept how you made this person feel. So that is what I'm getting at. All I want to say is, when you find yourself in situations where somebody's saying something that's racist and rude towards you or stereotyping, and this goes to white people too. Let me say this very clearly. I should have said this at the beginning. This is not just a black issue. White people, you too, you will deal with Japanese people that will say ignorant racist things towards you, from assuming that you are okay with being used casually for sex, to assuming that you have this crazy sexual appetite, to assuming that you are very opinionated, that you think this way, that you're loud, you're a drunkard, whatever the case is, that you're fat. And so it's like, you can choose to brush it off and be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Most of us are. But the problem is, you are now reinforcing a stereotype. You are teaching them, yes, it's okay to think and believe these things about most of us. Yes, it's okay to marginalize us. Yes, it's okay to have these preconceived stereotypes, which will then feed into other areas. This is the reason why there are places you can go here in Japan that literally have up signs that say, no foreigners, Japanese only. And even places that don't have signs up. I've literally been walking around in Roppongi before, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white friend of mine's, where was she from? Denmark. I told the story before. They literally turned us away from a smoothie bar. A smoothie bar. No alcohol. What we gonna do? Get drunk off of spinach? And they told us that, oh, look, we're too busy. We can't accept foreigners. What? Like, what? Excuse me? They literally turned us away for being foreign. 2 girls. We were both 21 years old. That's crazy. We were even 21? No, we were 20 years old. We were 20. I couldn't believe that. So, yeah, it's like, it's little things like that. You might think it's innocent. I talked about how at my job before, another American girl I was working with, and she was actually a lesbian. And I mentioned this because I would think, okay, she'd be more aware of stereotypes. And no, she was just as ignorant as a straight person would have been. And with that said, she had a student where when they were talking about traditions and celebrations around the world, she went on a whole tangent, and this is just in her paper that was on the wall, about how Americans like to eat a lot of food, and how they have a whole holiday, Thanksgiving, that's just made to have a buffet. And she literally drew a picture of fat American. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I died laughing when I laughed, I'm not gonna lie. But at the same time, it's like, you allowed your student to not only write this shitty ass article. You actually put it up in the hallway and you laughed at it? Because she was telling us about it and joking about it. I'm like, how do you not realize that that's not appropriate? You can laugh at it yourself as a teacher and share it with your friends and family. But now that you've put it up in the hallway, you are doing a few things. One, this is insulting to your American students in your classroom. Two, you just missed out on an opportunity to correct somebody that is stereotyping not just you, but the students in your classroom that are half American. This is an international school. You have biracial students that are half American. You're insulting yourself in your own country too. And then these same people will turn around and be like, why do foreigners get treated differently? We'll never be seen as Japanese. Because you guys let them. You let them insult us and talk badly about us. So I'm not trying to speak out of both sides. I'm saying there's a way to address things. You don't have to shut things down and be like, oh, don't say this, don't do whatever. But rather, you need to explain what's wrong with assuming these things about people. What's wrong with saying this about people? That would be the equivalent. Would it be okay for me to write an article about different celebrations, different holidays, and talk about how Japanese people have no manners and how for New Year's they have a 6-foot-long sushi roll and they swallow the thing in one bite because they're dogs. Asians are dogs and they cannot sit down and eat a proper meal. They have to shove everything down their mouth. They slurp their food like animals. Would that be appropriate for me to write? No. Is it how I kind of feel? Yeah, I think it's rude as fuck to slurp your food and to shove food down your mouth. You might think it's disgusting and gluttonous as hell to have an entire day where you sit around and just binge eat food, as we call it, for Thanksgiving. Totally understand, but do you see the issue here? You're insulting someone else's country and culture. And on top of that, this is just a conversation about holidays. You are now getting into the stereotype generalization of obesity. Talking about a cultural issue in the U.S. It's true, America does struggle with obesity. Completely agree. I told you all, I was almost 250 pounds before I came here. It's not untrue. But is everybody in the U.S. fat? Do we think it's okay to be fat? Now, don't get me wrong, we got all this body positivity stuff. Which that's another story too that I think has gone into several different fields. I can get into that in this video. There's a difference between not hating yourself, bullying people for being overweight, and loving who you are and wanting to work on and better yourself, and being delusional and convincing yourself that it's okay to be fat and it's okay to be unhealthy. That's a completely different story. We're not going to get into that in this video, like I said. But all I want to say is, when you have the opportunity to correct somebody and teach them, do it, but make sure you're coming out of a place of love and that you're not clowning and humiliating and embarrassing them. For example, what I did was uncalled for. In one sense, yes, I shut down the problem, I addressed it, I got the parents on board and everything. But the downside is, I didn't really get my point across. Because I was so focused on making the student feel bad about what they said, I didn't really use it as a learning lesson for them. And yes, I did do a lesson later on talking about, differences with different skin complexions and hair textures and languages, etc. I did an entire lesson on that after that situation. But the way that I handled it in the moment was not appropriate. And I see so many people, naturally get mad, not just with students, but with friends or strangers. For example, very controversial topic for black people, but the want to touch hair. I've said this a little bit on my channel before too, but it's you have to remember, everybody doesn't know the history of black hair, black issues in the US. A lot of people really truly are just curious. They don't think you're an animal or you're some sort of freak. It's strange. Think about it. Let's be real. Asian hair is just as polar opposite from black hair as it gets. The average person, that is. I've met Asians that have naturally curly hair, thick hair. Well, we know it all. But I'm talking about the stereotypical, average, thin, straight-haired Asian person. With that said, you'd be a liar if you pretended as an Asian person you had no interest in touching a black person's hair. Because naturally, you want to know, what does it feel like? Does it feel like the clown wigs at the store? You really want to know. You want to know. Let's keep it real. Even for myself as a black person, I have wanted to touch my 4C friends' hair because their hair doesn't feel anything like mine's. My hair is more on the fine side. I have looser curls than they do. I cannot do 4-type hair. If my kid has 4-type hair, I'm going to be watching YouTube tutorials, okay? And with that said, I understand the fascination with black hair. I'm not excusing people touching black hair. Hold on, don't get mad. But I'm saying you have to take a step back and remember, why do they want to do this? You can set boundaries and explain, please don't touch my hair. It's considered as rude and offensive from my culture. And then you can use this as an opportunity to give your backstory. Now you've taught somebody something. But if your natural reaction is, don't touch me, what the fuck you doing? You're going to get all angry and whatnot. How do they know? They don't know. Same thing goes like with the stereotype, you must be strong because you're an American, or you must be fast, you must be whatever. That's a stereotype. That's not true. I can consume the same amount of alcohol that you can, which I get drunk after a few drinks, just like how you do. I don't have some sort of super mega liver. And also, unlike people like you in your country, including yourself more than likely, I don't lie and pretend and fake being drunk in order to have a good time or coerce people into having sex with me. So, you know what I mean? Use it as an opportunity to teach and correct. Don't instantly just get angry and say, don't say this, or say whatever, and then come back with an insult towards them. Explain to them, that's not true. That's a stereotype. What you said is offensive. Please don't say that. That will be the equivalent of me saying whatever. Your tone of voice matters. The way you address the racial remarks matters. And it's also so important that you make sure that you, when possible, you pull the person to the side. Because when you're embarrassed, especially an adult, when you're going to embarrass someone and call them out for doing something racist, rude, ignorant, like touching your hair, or, calling you something that is seen as inappropriate, for example, saying, oh, you're this for a light skin, or for a dark skin, for whatever type person, or you have, this, or, foreigners have such whatever. If you don't address it in a way that is private, or in a way that is, meant well. So, for example, like, I know that you mean well. Starting it off with something like that, no, you meant well. I know you didn't know any better. But you shouldn't say this. It's not appropriate to say. It's offensive. Then they will understand. And the problem is, because you're in Japan, you can't teach them the same way that you would a white person in the U.S., going back talking to black people, because they don't have any experience being the majority or the minority. They are the only, pretty much, because even within the so-called majority, most of the foreigners living in Japan are other Asians. So they're not really dealing with racial stereotypes, but rather nationality-based stereotypes, going from Asian country to Asian country. For example, beliefs towards Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese people from the Philippines. Those are the countries that they deal with the most, and then of course they have India too. But with that said, that is their focus. They don't understand, most of them, or know any better unless they have experience going abroad, living in the U.S., living in, another country like that, specifically the U.S. Because even countries like Canada, thanks to Daniel Caesar, we've learned, kind of don't fully understand everything. Their history is a little bit different. But you get what I mean? They don't know any better. They don't understand how this is offensive, because even if you try to help them see things from your perspective and say, well, how would you feel if I said, oh, you're really, handsome for an Asian man? They wouldn't understand how that's offensive. Most people wouldn't, because for them it's like, wow, they're saying that I'm as handsome as a white guy. Thanks for the compliment, LOL. That's how they would treat it. They wouldn't see it as for an Asian. So you're saying I'm not attractive? They literally go around here shocked when you express, I've had plenty of Asian export. In fact, I've dated more Asian men than I've dated American men at this point. More than black men. They're surprised. They're surprised you're even willing to date them. They're surprised you're willing to have sex with them, because they've heard all these stereotypes about what they believe foreign women think of them. They don't see it as an insult. You can joke about an Asian person's eyes here. They'll laugh right with you. They'll insult their own eyes and be like, oh, I wish I had big, beautiful eyes like how you do. They don't understand it, because they don't share the same history that Asian Americans do. I'm using my country as an example, but I imagine Asian whatever people from any other given country. Their culture, their history, their background is so different. So again, this is not to excuse the racism, but rather to say, when people say and do racist, prejudice, ignorant things like that, you have to be the bigger person and relax yourself and think, why would this person say that? And think to yourself, it's more than likely, just assume it's coming from a place of ignorance rather than a want to hurt you. Clearly they're trying to compliment you if they're saying for a whatever. Or you're the best I've ever seen for whatever. Or you're handsome, or you're, pretty, you're beautiful because you're this. I get that all the time. And it's like, actually, I'm not Brazilian. Actually, I'm not from the Philippines. Actually, I'm not half Japanese. I'm an American living in Japan. I'm a black American living in Japan. I'm not biracial. I'm not half white. I'm not half Japanese. I'm not Filipino, whatever else you think I am. And many of them, they don't even think anything of it. They think it's a compliment to tell you that you're attractive because half of you is me. How is that offensive? They don't get it. It's a matter of ignorance, not a matter of trying to insult you or make you feel bad. It's not a matter of trying to insult you and make you feel bad. So, yeah, just really keep that in mind when you're talking to people. Be very sensitive with how you correct people. Nobody learns from somebody yelling at them, going off on them, and embarrassing them. People learn and change their mind and opinion from people speaking to them gently and nicely. If you are not gentle with the way that you speak to someone, correct them, they're more than likely not going to change unless they choose to on their own. You're not going to have a positive influence or impact on them. I am much more inclined to listen to you when you speak to me respectfully. You can disagree while being respectful. If you are shoving down my throat that I am a racist, I'm a bad person, I'm whatever, why would I change? If anything, you're confirming that my stereotypes are true about you. Do you get what I'm saying? And sure, you might change their mind and make them stop doing what they're doing. But that's not going to work for everyone. And now you've left another bad taste in their mouth. So, wow, this person's, whatever. They're angry, they're sensitive, they're whatever. It just feeds into more and more and more stereotypes. And so again, like I said, of course, there are some generalizations that we can make. For example, yes, it is true the majority of Americans are overweight. Yes, it is true that most black people like chicken. You get what I mean? Things like that. But it's you have to be careful with how you address things, how you address people. And this goes for when you're talking to white people too as a black person. Everyone doesn't mean to be offensive. Everyone's not saying stuff to be racist. Doesn't change that what they said was offensive and is racist. But I'm saying, have an open heart and open mind. There's people that are subscribed to me right now that have learned stuff from watching my channel. You might not know any black people in real life. You've probably only seen them on TV. It's not a matter of being too sensitive or anything else like that, but rather it's a matter of you possibly being a little bit too sensitive. It doesn't take away from the fact that what they said is wrong and ignorant and needs to stop and shouldn't be said. But you have to have enough self-control to address the statement that is being made and not take out your anger on the person. I think of it this way, from a Christian perspective. I get really upset when I see people that are supposed to be Christian that go around hating and bashing other people for doing things that are seen as worldly or inappropriate or wrong, etc. It's you are not going to make anybody convert to Christianity by pretending like you're God himself and judging everyone and talking down on everyone. Likewise, you are not going to make someone more curious to learn, oh, I didn't know that was racist, or I didn't know that was an insult. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean that. By going off on them. You're going to stop them from continuing with the insults towards you, possibly. But they're not going to want to do research on their own and figure out the history of it. That's how I learned about Oriental. It was calmly explained in a YouTube video. And after watching that video, I wanted to learn more. And I couldn't help but think to myself, oh, I feel really bad because I've had Korean friends in school. And I asked them to teach me how to say, words that I didn't want them to feel like I was using them for Korean. I really did want to be their friend. I really was curious about their culture and country. I thought they were happy to teach me these things. I had no idea. And so this goes into, with us being here as foreigners, I joke about it and it does annoy me like anybody else. But a lot of people that are asking you to teach them English, their goal isn't even necessarily to use you. Yes, they want to learn English for free, don't get me wrong. But they don't understand how often you get asked that. They don't understand how annoying that is. They don't understand, this is my business. You're asking me to do my job for free. Do I ask you to do your job for free? They don't have any understanding. There's no correlation between the two for most of these people. Getting angry and saying, I don't teach free English lessons, I'm not an English tutor, whatever. Yeah, they're not going to ask you again. But they're just going to be like, okay, angry English teacher, time to find another foreigner. Like, it's not going to correct them. You get what I'm saying? They're just going to move on to someone else. But if you take the time to explain to them, look, I don't mind doing a language exchange with you as a friend, but I will also tell you, foreigners here want real friends. They don't want people that are just using them for free English lessons. Of course, they go, no, I'm not using it. Well, you technically are, because your appeal to me is the fact that I'm a foreigner and I speak English at a native level. You want to improve your English by talking to me. And that's cool. I can use you for Japanese. When I need to fill out paperwork, I need somebody to come to the bank of me or immigration. Now I have you. You're my friend. So it's 50-50. I don't have to pay for a translator. Cool. But at the same time, you need to correct it. You need to explain to them. It's tiresome. People get angry at hearing that. Nobody wants to feel like they are only being used. You get what I mean? It's like being rich knowing, like, people only like you because you have money. People only want to be your friend because you have money. People only want to date you because you have money. It's that sort of thing. So, again, it's a really touchy, deep topic conversation, but I really think that, that's really important for you to consider how you go about it. I know it's so easy to take out your anger and get mad and become irrational and just assume everybody should know and everybody should understand. But the reality is, just because you are intelligent enough to take the time and research how to talk to these people and research what's considered as a backhanded compliment doesn't mean that other people are willing to do that. If we were to all be honest with ourselves, especially if you happen to not be a black person or you are a black person with lighter skin like myself, I can be honest, we have all said and are given backhanded compliments ourselves. We have to learn. Some of us were fortunate, like myself, and learned when we were teenagers and kids, whereas with other people, they don't learn until later on in life. They've never had the push to learn. As an American, we come from a multicultural, multinational country. We have people from all over the world come and visit us. We have been taught and told what is and is not appropriate to say. We have easy access to these things. We have videos on these things. Social media talks about it. Our celebrities talk about it. We are reminded of it. In a country like Japan, they have none of that. Again, this does not excuse what they're doing, but rather to say, if you want true change, you have to be sensitive to people's ignorance and learn how to correctly address it, learn how to correctly encourage and inspire them to research and inform themselves and learn more. One of the best ways that I did that, I think about my ex. He became so interested in learning about black culture on his own, not because I shoved it down his throat, but when I explained things that he would say to me that was like, that's a stereotype or that's inappropriate. So what did he want to do? Because I nicely explained why that's not true and why you shouldn't say that, he started researching things on his own. He did his own research. He watched his own movies on slavery. He didn't know about, comments on hair. He didn't know about, the feelings on skin complexion, etc. They don't understand it. Their idea of these things is totally different. They've never been put in a situation where they have to feel inferior for how they were born. In fact, the only so-called inferior feelings that they have is when they try to compare their skin and their features to white people, which is by their own choice. They're not living in a country full of white people. Whereas for black people, from the U.S. in particular, you are surrounded by white people. So being faced with other people telling you, oh, your skin is dark, or oh, you look like whatever, it's really hurtful and degrading to us. Whereas for people in Japan, they themselves tell themselves, we don't want to look like what all of us are. We want to look like those few people that don't even live in our country. And people want to argue this, oh, look, it goes way back to whatever. Yes, we can talk about those little cutesy things about scrolls and walls and paintings, etc., murals. But the reality is, Japanese culture, like all of Asia, has changed their beauty standards to fit around European beauty. It has nothing to do with going back to the old days. Geisha, white paint, and hairstyles, etc. does not look like white people. But if you look at what they want their models to look like, their celebrities to look like, they're clearly trying to copy off of the image of European and American white people. That is definitely modernized. That has nothing to do with going back to ancient times and geisha, etc. They want truly, truly white features, truly, truly white skin. And that's cool if that's what they want to do, but that's what I'm saying. Because they themselves don't find an issue with not loving themselves. They don't understand what's wrong with poking fun at you Not necessarily loving yourself, but not being the ideal beauty standard, if you get what I mean. In a lot of countries here, it's totally okay to get plastic. Nobody's going to laugh at you for getting a nose job, for getting your eyes done. I have never seen a single Japanese person clown someone for that. As long as it's not butchered, I guess. In the US, you fix up your face and change your features, which I think is so stupid because, like, why do people get so mad about people, like, changing their eye color or getting nose job? I'm talking about permanently. Like, I'm not talking about wearing contacts. And it's like, if all you're going to do is wear contact lenses every day to give yourself blue eyes, if all you're going to do is, contour a nose job on you every day, why not just get the real thing done? I'm not advocating plastic surgery like how I said, but I understand how people do it. People will bash you for it in my country, in the US. But in Japan, nobody cares. It's like, oh, you got your nose done? Oh, it looks good. You get what I mean? So for them, it's a totally different culture. Your parents are not going to be like, oh, you should love yourself the way you are, baby. You tell me you want to get a nose job? I'm like, I think you should too. Like, you know what I mean? It's a totally different culture here. So again, not excusing it, but I am saying a combination of not having a ton of foreigners here, having a lack of foreign media that specifically talks about stereotypes and racism, and of course, a lack of people correcting them when they do say it, because there seems to be two different kind of foreigners. There's the foreigner that gets super angry, goes off on them and shuts it down, and then there's the foreigner that laughs and joins in like, I am a fat ass. Yep, I do need my dick sucked 6 times a day. Like, you know what I mean? You deal with that type of foreigner. And then it's like, okay, well, nobody ever corrected me. So, yeah, foreigners are strong. They can drink a whole bottle of Ciroc and, Hennessy. Like, I wish my liver can do that. That's exactly what they're going to walk away from that thinking. Because you laughed and joined in on the joke. You didn't correct it. If that's what you do, they're going to continue that stereotype and carry it along. If you continue to jump for Scooby snacks and cookies when somebody compliments you on basic manners and etiquette, instead of saying, a lot of Americans are not wild party animals and crazy. Sorry, but me being quiet and polite and nodding my head to you, etc., is not me mimicking you or having a Japanese mother. My mom is actually black, thank you very much. I am a Christian. I was raised conservatively. I have manners, just like how you do. Of course, saying it nicely. But you know what I mean? Correcting things when you hear it. Instead of being like, oh, I am Japanese. Yep. I've been in Japan for so long, it's rubbed off on me. No, own your own crap. It's okay to say, I know you mean well, but actually, not all Americans are loud, obnoxious, and party animals. Actually, not all Americans are really good with drinking tons of alcohol. Actually, people drink more here in Japan than in my home country. Saying these things nicely brings forth change. Getting angry, going off, belittling people, making them feel dumb for not knowing, they're not going to want to research anything. But leaving some food for thought and helping them understand also why it's offensive, why it's rude, and helping them see things from the other side of it. Be like, okay, how would you feel if you were the only person here? And think of things they wouldn't want to stereotype. For example, just like I was just saying, like about, the whole noodle thing. That would hurt their feelings. Or let me use my infamous example. I'm always talking about how they don't wash their hands here in Asia. But imagine if I were in the U.S. and I had a Japanese, person out that moved into my dorm, and I was like, oh my God, did you use hot water and hand soap? Wow. Japanese people never wash their hands. It's a stereotype. Now, I'm guilty of joking about this myself. I'm keeping it real. I live here in Japan, I might add. But it's like, you know what I mean? That would be ignorant for me to say to somebody. We know what you're thinking inside your mind. You ain't got to tell me. I know your thoughts when you see a light-skinned black girl. I know your thoughts when you see a dark-skinned black girl that you find attractive. We get it. We get it. But we can't change your thoughts. But you don't have to say everything that you're thinking. We also get it that you see somebody walk through and like, oh my God, like, damn, she fat as fuck. But you ain't got to tell her, wow, you are so big. How much do you weigh? Are you, 200 kilograms? You don't have to voice everything that you're thinking, everything that you see. It is very much indeed okay for you to notice something, see something, think something, and keep it to yourself. You don't have to be vocal about everything or share everything. It's also stereotype for them to say things like, oh, Americans are really direct. No, all of us are not. And yeah, we're direct with certain things, but we don't talk about sex openly like that. Like, where did you get that from? We don't fuck each other in public. We don't normally tongue kiss each other in public either and crap like that. At best, a small smooch is okay in public. But even then, some people don't feel comfortable doing that. That's not true. We don't hug people when we first meet them unless you're like being, grandfathered in, for lack of a better term, treating you like family. But we don't do that with total strangers. It's inappropriate to do. So do you see what I mean? There's a way for you to nicely address these things. So that's it. I can go on rambling, ranting about this. I just want to say, be really, really careful with how you correct people. Because the way that you correct them and address them and call them out can make all the difference moving forward. If you are angry when you correct them, you're more than likely just going to start up another argument. They're going to double down on what they had to say. They're going to become, defensive and, whatever. And that's kind of a problem we have in the U.S. right now. I'm not saying we should have to do this as black people. Do not get me wrong. But I don't make the rules. I play by them. And I'm just saying that by being a jerk and an a-hole, you are just going to reinforce their stereotype. Or you might shut them down and make them afraid to say something to you. But they're going to move ahead thinking the same thing, saying it to the next person. I'm reminded of a video that I saw on YouTube. I actually left a comment on this video in which there was this former Klansman or whatever, and he had this black woman that was an officer, and she was like his parole officer or something like that, and he was super angry, like, why would they give him a dark-skinned black woman? That was really bogus for him to do to begin with, considering his case. And he ended up becoming best friends with her. He's no longer on parole. I think he started a business and everything else. I think it was a video on tattoo removals or something like that. Completely changed that man's life. And you want to know how she did it? Through kindness. She didn't sit there going off on him, trying to correct him and tell him, don't think this about me and my people. Don't whatever. You're a horrible person. Not that he is not those bad things. But she saw past that. I am not going to change your mind on something by going off on you and talking down on you like a dog, you are a child, and embarrassing you. You change people's mind, their feelings, through love, through acts of kindness, through forgiveness, through educating them in an appropriate way. No one wants to be educated in school by a bossy-ass bitch, diva, nasty attitude, funky bitch. People like to be educated by those that seem nice and caring and that genuinely want to teach. It's hard to hold back your anger and feelings, I understand. But you have to do it if you want to change this world. So that's it for this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have anything you would like to add, if you're living in Japan and want to share your own opinions or want to share any experiences that you've had, people saying, racist, ignorant, stereotypical things to you, please feel free to leave a comment down below. As always, all of my social media links are down in the description box and at the end of this video. I would appreciate if you would like this video, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, once again. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope you'll watch another video. Bye.